Good afternoon, everyone. I'm recording this second session of virtual lecture on Friday, March 27th. Today, I'm going to be talking about large food processors and how they fit into a local and regional food system. This is the lecture that was scheduled for yesterday, so we're pretty close to on time for that one. This is the lecture that goes along with the virtual field trip to Bell's Brewery. If you have not done that lab, please try to get that done. You can do it completely online. And I did include, when I sent out the field trip report, an email address for the director of brewery tours at Bell's, Shelley Claflin. And if you have any questions that you can't find on the website, you can send her an email and she'll answer them. I do realize that Bell's has asks for what your birth date is if you're not 21. So as far as I know, if you lie, nobody's gonna know about it, and you're only looking for information on the website about their organization. So I think that should be all right. So let's get going. Today I'm going to first start out with information about the reflection paper, which was previously assigned. If you don't have the assignment, please let me know. I will try to remember to attach the assignment rubric to the email I send out when I finish this lecture. And then I'm going to talk about large food manufacturers and how they can become sustainable, or how they can be sustainable. I want to go over the idea of the economic multiplier concept. That idea is going to appear on the final exam. And the other thing that I don't have listed on here is, I know it's not 100% sure, it hasn't been announced, but it's very likely that we won't have any more in-person sessions this semester. So it's very possible that we'll be doing the final exam virtually as well. And I haven't quite figured out how to do that, but I'll keep you informed as I learn more information. Okay, so the reflection paper is worth 200 points. It is going to be a 2 to 3 page paper that is going to answer a prompt question. That prompt question is, you're about to embark on a career in the food system in some capacity. In your career, you will need to make choices or help others make choices about what ingredients to buy, what recipes to use, how and where food is to be sold, and also how and where ingredients are to be purchased. These decisions will have an impact on the local food system and economy. All that you've learned throughout the time that you've been in this program has been to teach you not only how to cook, but how your career as a chef impacts the local food system. You have a lot of power behind your position to help mold what the local food system is going to look like. Granted, you're not going to have that power initially. It may be a while before you either own a restaurant, own a food truck, or have reached the position where your philosophy of food impacts the organizations you work for. But it's always good to have an idea of what that's going to look like before you get to that point. So in this and other classes, you've learned about the challenges of sustainability nutritious food, economic viability, and safety in our food system. So you know you can't decide only on taste and convenience when choosing the ingredients that you use in the food that you create. How will you make these choices? So in other words, what you're answering is, what does healthy food mean to you as a chef? So you're going to be using all that you've learned to answer this question. As part of the paper, I want you to have at least 2 resources. They can be some of the resources that I've included in our class Moodle, and also other references that you find yourself. I'll be going over in the next couple slides how to create those citations that you're going to use in your paper. Hold on. Okay, I'm back again. Had to let the dog out. So I want you to incorporate aspects of, what does sustainable food look like? How do we get nutritious food? How do your choices as a chef impact economic viability, safety, and what all this means to the local food system? I'd like you to refer to at least 2 class activities in your paper and how those have impacted your view of healthy food and local food. And then you're going to have 2 references, and they have to be correctly cited at the end of the paper in a bibliography and also within the text of the paper. And I'll go through an example of that. So if you don't remember how to create citations, there's a website called citationmachine.net that you can use to create it, whether it's a reference from a website or a book or a magazine or any sort of material. And so you're going to, within the paper, you indicate the reference either using a superscript or the author and year of the resource in parentheses after the text from that reference. Okay, next. So when you create a citation using citationmachine.net, these are the steps that you're going to use. On citationmachine.net, choose APA or MLA for your citation style. You can use either one for this paper. Then you're going to check the form of your resource. And for this example that I'm using, I'm going to use a website, and that's is the easiest thing to do for me. So in the text box, you're going to enter the website URL and then click search websites. Then it's going to come up with the complete URL for the page right beneath that, with a button titled Select next to it. So click on that, and then the next page is going to give you all the information that it gets from the website that needs to go into a citation. Then click Final Step. The next page, it's going to have the date, the various information, including the date the web page was created, and also a blank date field where you are going to enter the date that you access the URL. That can be either you can click on today's date or the date the date you actually looked at it, accessed it. and then you click the button called Create Citation. Then it's going to come up with a complete official citation and gives you some options as well. And if you click on copy, it'll put the complete citation onto your clipboard, and then you just paste that into your paper, and then you're all done. Okay, let me know if you have any questions on this. And a reminder, you want to have two resources in your paper. If you have more, that's fine, but you have to have at least two. Okay, local food manufacturers and distributors. By this, I mean big distributors, big local food manufacturers, not the type that come out of a can-do kitchen. So some of the ones in Southwest Michigan include, for manufacturers, Coca-Cola, Kellogg, Calsec, which is a flavor producer, Welch's, which is the grape juice cooperative, Bell's Brewing is considered a large manufacturer these days, even though it's still within the craft brewery category, and there's others. Distributors are going to include the food service distributors like Sodexo, Gordon's Food Service, US Foods, Aramark, and others. Okay. The question I have is, do we really need large food producers and distributors? We've been talking a lot about the importance of a healthy local and regional food system. And if we're going to develop that, do we still need those large food organizations? And I would be saying yes. We want to have both a strong local and regional food system, but we still don't have, and aren't going to for a long time, the numbers of food producers, farmers, and other organizations to really feed our local population. So we do continue to need those large food organizations. The question then is, can these organizations, these companies, be an integral part of the local and regional food system? And is purchasing local food the only way that they can be sustainable? That's a question I want to answer. And what does this mean to you as chefs? Well, that one I'll answer right now. If you know a lot about the organization, then you have a better chance of making an informed decision about whether or not to purchase the goods produced by those organizations. And if you know that they treat their employees and their customers and their suppliers well, that people part of the triple bottom line equation, if you know that they are actively working to reduce their carbon footprint, to improve their impact on the environment, then you can be more likely to choose them as a supplier. So the scale of food manufacturing is huge in this country. Manufacturers process thousands and thousands of pounds of food on a daily basis and purchase those quantities of ingredients, often from worldwide sources. So purchasing from a local supply could be very difficult for them to do, and because they don't have small scale processing facilities regionally located throughout the country. They generally have large processing facilities that produce the products for either a nationwide or a worldwide distribution. To give you an idea of the scale of food processing on this scale, take a look at this YouTube video just to give you an idea of how much food they actually produce at one time, just in case you haven't been in a large food processing facility. Okay, do large manufacturers need to use local food to be sustainable? This is an ad that was up on billboards around here for a number of years ago, and it does indicate that large food processors do purchase from local Michigan farmers. So they are contributing to the local economy, and that's definitely a benefit. But is that use of the word local appropriate, and does that contribute to their sustainability? One question is, does this mean that Lay's potato chips in this example, does it mean that it's local food? The local potatoes, the Michigan potatoes, join potatoes from all over the country. So it's pretty hard to tease out of a bag of potato chips the ones that are actually Michigan potatoes. And our Michigan potatoes in that potato chip bag ends up being all the way across the country. So even though they don't have special labeling on their potato chips to say that this bag of potato chips come from Michigan farmers, they do benefit the local economy in this case. And we'll touch on that a little bit later in the lecture about as we review what the economic multiplier is all about. So if it's more difficult for large companies to buy locally grown food, how else can they embrace sustainability? Now, remember, we've talked a bit about this idea, the triple bottom line, and that's the three intersecting circles of people, profit, and planet. Most companies, or a great percentage of companies, primarily look at that economic prosperity or profit end of the business and don't necessarily pay as much attention to the people and the planet. It's not to say that they don't think those are important. It's just that the profit part of the equation is the way they're going to often make decisions. So the way a large food processing company or distributor can be more sustainable is to put all three of these ideas on an equal footing. So do they treat their employees well? This is something that is actually very important at times like this. For example, here we have basically a lockdown in Michigan. We have people who've lost their jobs because companies and restaurants and other places have had to close, and the companies have had no choice but to let people go. So we've got issues of social equity, and we also live in a country where we don't put people first, so we don't have universal health coverage, and we don't have everybody doesn't have sick pay and vacation pay. So those are important aspects that come to the forefront when we're in situations like this. And environmental sustainability and what you do to minimize your carbon footprint, your environmental impact also affects that. And looking at all of these three aspects are ways that those larger companies can become more quote unquote sustainable and basically be better stewards of their place in the world. So there's this standard, there's this certification program that has been going on for a few years called Certified B Corporation, and the B stands for benefit. So it's an idea where the corporations, they basically meet the highest standards of social and environmental performance, public transparency, and legal accountability, balancing that with profit. B corporations actually have in their corporate documents a requirement that they put social and environmental standards on a equivalent footing to profit and money-making enterprises. And you can learn a little bit more if you look up bcorporation.net. The B corporations have what they call a Declaration of Independence. So we envision a global economy that uses business as a force for good. This economy is comprised of a new type of corporation, the B or benefit corporation. It's purpose-driven and creates benefits for all stakeholders, not just shareholders. So that's where the corporations are judged on how they treat their employees, how they treat their suppliers, how they treat their customers, what environmental standards they are living up to, as well as whether or not they're making a profit. A lot of what B corporations look to improve are things like transparency of how they run their business, the diversity of their board of directors, how much say employees have in the running of the company, and things like that. So they also believe that the idea that we, the B corporations, must be the change we seek in the world. If we think things need to improve, then we need to model that for other corporations that look to us for guidance. All business must be conducted as if people and place matters. That's the people and the environmental, people and planet part of the triple bottom line. Our products, practices, and profits should aspire to do no harm and to benefit all. We have to act with the understanding that we are dependent upon one another and thus responsible for each other and future generations. So that all sounds great, but what does it look like if a corporation is wanting to be considered as a B or benefit corporation? They look at areas like governance. What's the transparency of the governmental structure of the corporation like? Do they have diversity in their board of directors? What's the difference between the CEO pay and the median pay of an employee? How they treat their workers? Do they give? Are they paid a living wage? Are there opportunities for advancement? What kind of benefits does do each of the employees get? Do they interact? Does the corporation interact with the community and try to uplift the entire community as well? How do they deal with the environment? Are they trying to reduce the environmental impact of their process? Are they trying to reduce the waste that they produce? One thing that companies might do is offer to buy back or bring back the packaging material that they send their products out packaged in, and recycle and reuse that. How do they treat their customers? Are they responsive to comments and complaints from their customers and things like that? So there's the requirements documents that the certified B corporation, the prospective certified B corporation has to go through is a many long pages of questions and requests for information that they have to submit in order to be considered. Now the scoring is goes from 0 to 200, and only 80 are required for certification. Perhaps that's a fairly low bar, but I think it's something that the more corporations look to participate in the program and the longer they're working on various aspects, the more points they'll end up being rewarded with. So what are some B corporations, and are there some that you might know? Danone North America is one. Their brands are Silk, I think that's tofu, Wallaby Organic, which is yogurt, Earthbound Farms, Activia, and Dannon, amongst others. It has a score of 84.9. This is a instance where one division of a larger corporation can become a B Corp even while the entire larger organization is not. Higher Grounds Trading Company, you might be familiar with. They deal in fair trade coffee and are located in Michigan. They have a score of 90.5. King Arthur Flour is one. It is a very old flour company in the United States, and it is an employee-owned company, has a score of 116. Ben & Jerry's Ice Cream is a certified B Corp. It's another instance of a division of a company becoming a certified B Corporation. It has a score of 110. And some of you may be familiar with Brewery Vivant, which is out of Grand Rapids, Michigan. They have a score of 109.6, and we'll look a little bit more closely at each of these as we go through the slides. So Danone scoring had their final report was 257 pages long. So they went through pretty much all of the requirements to get to 84.9. Doesn't sound like a lot, but still. So in the governance area, the states that they do put social and environmental impacts on par with profit. Executive compensation is linked to those social and environmental expectations, which is a big requirement in the certified B Corporation. They are working towards improving financial transparency and other things. 90 to 95% of employees of Danone earn living wages. They have the high to low pay ratio is fairly narrow, which means that it's a pretty flat pay structure. 75 to 99% of the employees have bonus plans, and most of them also have health care. So some of the community aspects that adds to their B Corporation score include gender pay equity, fairly diverse board of directors. They have a diverse workforce. They include diversity and inclusiveness training for their employees. They encourage or require volunteer service, and they, as a company, do make charitable donations. As far as the environmental programs that Danone takes part in, they do recycling programs. They have a intense chemical management in their factories. They try to monitor their energy use to reduce that. They monitor and reduce their water use, and they have what's called life cycle assessment analysis. That's where they look at the materials that they use and try to determine the environmental impact of those materials, and that helps to point out areas where they can reduce their environmental impact based on those analyses. So they got a score of 84.9. So they just made it as a certified B Corporation. But this gives them a basis for building on ways that they can improve the next time they have to be assessed. So, Higher Grounds Trading Company, they have a score of 90.5, and their highest scoring area was community for supply chain poverty alleviation and toxic reduction. So they work very closely with the farmers who produce their coffee. They import the green coffee beans and roast them here in Michigan. They work to improve the living conditions and the economic status of the farmers. Very often in with production of tropical products like coffee and chocolate, the actual farmers get very little out of the out of the out of every dollar of retail sales that are for these products. And so one thing that fair trade companies do is it improves the money that goes back to the farmers. So that's, we have a score of 90.5. King Arthur Flour was the best company for workers in 2018. It's also the America's oldest flour company, more than 200 years old. King Arthur Flour is a 100% employee-owned company. So all of the employees in the company have a vested interest in the company's success, and that ensures a lot of product quality, and it keeps the company accountable for its practices. So they rank very high on how they treat the workers, which is something that you'd expect. And since the workers are also part of the community, there's a lot of interaction between the company and the community in which they exist. And they also have pretty high marks for the environmental sustainability. Ben & Jerry's is has a score of 110. Their mission, in their mission statement, they talk about being economically sustainable, but also to create positive change in the community, introduce ideas of economic justice within the community and the country. They have a very progressive social mission that is looking to meet human needs and injustice and eliminate injustices in local, national, and international communities. So they're, again, very highly ranked with both community and workers, a little bit pretty well with the environment. So that's how some of the some companies can, what it looks like if they're going to be a certified B Corporation. So one that's a little bit closer is Brewery Vivant. This is one, I mean, it's right in our backyard. It's up in Michigan, and they actually put in their mission statement or vision, they actually talk about the 3 pillars of sustainability, that triple bottom line. And often when you put it in writing and your employees and your customers know that it's important to the company, that it's a whole lot easier to hold those companies accountable for those statements if they slip up and do things that don't really fit with that ideal. They have a sustainability report that they come out with every year that's called Beer the Change, kind of a play on the word be the change that you want to see in the world. It documents their progress towards 12 sustainability goals that they have. They want to produce 0 waste. They want to spend 90% of those expenses with local suppliers, and give 10% of profits to charities, and have all of their employees as a total put in 200 volunteer hours. I believe that they have easily surpassed the volunteer hours. They're getting pretty close to 90% of their expenses with local suppliers. They've got a ways to go on the profits to charity, but you can look up their sustainability goals and where they are on their website. They score pretty highly on the environment and communities, and reasonably well on workers. Not as well as they would on the like King Arthur Flour, which is the employee-owned organization, but they do pretty well. So this gives you a pretty broad overview of some of the ways in which corporations can work towards being sustainable within the local food system that they exist. The best one in our backyard, and Bell's is not a certified B corporation, but they do go a long way to supporting those triple bottom line ideas. They provide living wage jobs. They purchase quite a few items from local suppliers. They do have locally sourced ingredients. The fact that they're in this community and they're in this state has done a tremendous amount of good for the local brewing industry. That and the whole brewing industry has done that. The management does focus on measuring goals of sustainability and transparency. They do engage a lot with local communities through events, charitable giving, and volunteering. The process itself, the process for making beer, also incorporates a lot of energy saving methods, which I won't go over them because that was part of the assignment for the virtual field trip. They do talk about a lot of it on their website. I really wish we could have been able to go to their facility because I think it's one of the best examples of a larger company that's working towards ideas of sustainability, especially when the environment is concerned. Okay, now I want to talk about economic multiplier effect. This is a review, and if you can still hand in the extra credit paper on the economic multiplier idea, and it's going to be basically a copy of what I'm going to go over today. So the economic multiplier effect is an effect that shows just how important local purchases are. So this little chart here shows that if you buy something at an online store remotely, Amazon or anything like that, maybe $1 out of your $100 purchase will actually stay in the community. If you buy from a in-town chain outlet like the local Target or McDonald's or anything like that, a little bit more of your money stays within the economy. If you buy at a local independent store or from a farmer at the farmer's market, most of the money that you spend there will stay in the community. And the money that stays in the community goes through multiple transactions before it's, I won't say used up, but the total effect of every $100 you spend in community is multiplied many times when you keep it local. So these are the definitions that you need to remember. The direct effects of an economic transaction are that the money, that the infusion of funds or that initial purchase. Like if I go to the farmer's market and buy $100 worth of fruits and vegetables from Green Gardens Farm or something like that. So then the indirect effects are what happens after that initial purchase. So if the people at Green Gardens, Trent and Ruthie Thompson, they're going to make other purchases locally as well. They might buy fruits and vegetables to sell at their farm stand that they don't grow themselves. So those are indirect effects. They're subsequent purchases. Okay, and then induced effects, Trent and Ruthie may have employees that they pay, and that the pay that they give to their employees may have been made possible by that initial purchase. So induced effects are employee purchases. Some of the money that you make in purchases leaves the community. So if you think of a community being a teapot, and that teapot has a few holes in it, and some of the money is going to leak out of the teapot. So leakage is the amount of money not spent locally. So now we're going to go over an example. We're going to find out what the total economic impact is. We're going to add up all of the local purchases. The initial purchase is a consumer buys the local business products. Subsequent purchases, or direct effects, indirect effects, are going to be things that the business owner buys from as materials or services from local vendors. And then induced effects are the employee purchases, and they're going to also spend money in the community. Leakage, remember, is the money that leaves the community. So in this chart, our initial purchase of $100 is, let's go back to my example. I'm going to be a chef at a local restaurant, and I'm going to spend $100 on produce at Green Gardens Farm. So that $100 is the first part of our local purchases. Okay, Trent and Ruthie are going to buy strawberries to sell at their farm stand, $50 worth of strawberries from a local producer. They're going to spend the other $50 on some other things that's not local purchase. Maybe they need a whole bunch of books from Amazon. The third purchase is that strawberry vendor is going to buy boxes from a local manufacturer to put their strawberries in. And they're going to spend $15 on gas for the tractor. Okay, so far we've got local purchases. We've got direct effect of $100, indirect effect of $50 plus $35, and we have leakage of $50 plus $15. The packaging manufacturer is going to spend $25 on laundry. They use a local laundry to clean their employees' uniforms, and they're going to spend $10 on computers, pretty cheap computers, but hey. Okay, and one of Trent and Ruthie's employees is also going to spend $15 on produce that they need that Trent and Ruthie can't provide at another local vendor at the farmer's market. So if we look over on the right, the key says that all the green ones are local purchases. All the blue ones are leakage. So that's money that leaves the community. Okay, the total of the local purchases comes to a total of $225, and I'll break that down a bit on the next slide. So what is the total local impact? So what is the economic multiplier? How much did that increase? So unfortunately, I didn't look at this slide after I converted it, but so things don't line up. So the total initial local purchase was $100. The total of all subsequent local purchases was $110, and the employees purchased $15 worth of local goods. So the total impact of that initial local purchase was $225 into the local economy. So the total local impact was 225% of the initial local purchase. So the leakage, what leaked out of the community, if you recall, that was all the blue stuff on this chart. So we have $50, $65, $75. So $75 was the total amount of leakage. Okay, this stuff will be on the final exam. It's very likely that the final exam will be virtual, which means that you will have access to all the notes and things that you have produced, have access to. So you'll have this lecture plus also the initial lecture where I talked about it. So you can also use this information to do the extra credit sheet that I handed out, and we'll also include in the email in which you get the link to this lecture. So there you go. Okay, so that's all I have for today. Remember to work on your assignments and hand them in via email as you get them done. I will accept all assignments from the entire semester for full credit. If you can't scan assignments, please take a photo of each page of the assignment with your phone or camera and send that to me in an email. Please, please, please ask me if you have any questions. Don't feel like you can't contact me. I'm here to help you pass this class. And please have a good weekend. Okay, so that's all I have for today, and we will see you next time.